As promised, Joshua Williamson and DC Comics have delivered the news, the update on Dark Crisis. Now we have some idea of what it is. And I do want to say, I hate being right. Well, I don't hate being right, but I do hate being right because my suspicions, well, not completely confirmed. Or certainly, if you read between the lines, right, you can see what they're getting at here. Obviously, I got all the details. I've got opinions. So if you came for that, you're going to get more than you can handle. Well, let's get into all the details on Dark Crisis 2022. Writer Joshua Williamson and artist Daniel Sampere will team up to create a love letter to the DCU, a monthly 7-issue Dark Crisis series launching in June that is considered 30 years in the making. Where have I heard this before? We always hear, this thing is a lifetime in the making. We've been working on this for decades, even though obviously Joshua Williamson and Daniel Sampere have not been at DC Comics for that long. They've probably been reading DC Comics. Maybe Joshua Williamson has been thinking about this story for 30 years. I have doubts about it. But I imagine it just means that they're going to take 30 years of continuity, chew it up like bubblegum, and spit it out. That's kind of what we're getting. Dark Knight's death metal, stuff like that. Like everything, there are good aspects and bad aspects, and I will talk about the good first. I have a tremendous amount of faith in Joshua Williamson. Actually, Daniel Sampere, the artist, he's pretty damn good. What he was doing with Action Comics before he got replaced on there, obviously to go move on to this more important, higher profile project, he was doing some really good stuff. So if DC Comics are moving up an artist to kind of replace, I guess, Greg Capullo, Jason Fabok, Gary Frank is maybe one of their new premier artists that's going to work on projects like this, Daniel Sampere is a very good choice. And as I mentioned, I have a tremendous amount of faith in Williamson as a writer. He's been knocking it out of the park really since day one on DC Rebirth. His Flash series is absolutely fantastic. He got some fill-in issues on Justice League that don't really stand out, but they certainly weren't bad. Right now, he's got like 3 of the best ongoing titles at DC Comics period, probably like 3 of the 5 best. So Robin, the Damian Wayne story, Deathstroke Inc., as well as Batman. He's really done some really good things on Batman following up on James Tynion's run. Now let's talk about the bad. I have no faith in DC Comics editorial, and I certainly have no faith in DC Comics leadership. And that's going to be an issue. With an event this size, it is going to be bigger than Joshua Williamson. They're going to bring in a lot of people. There's going to be tie-ins. It's going to possibly cross over into some of the ongoings. And there's a good chance that Williamson, even if he has a good story, DC editorial will somehow mess it up for it. Like, hey, we've seen that before, editorial interference. As far as the leadership and having a direction for DC Comics that's solid, that's laid in the ground, like this is where we're going, there is none of that. It's the blind leading the blind under Jim Lee, and it doesn't feel like Marie Javins or the new senior vice president and general manager are going to be able to stop that. There have been no improvements under Javins as the EIC. Obviously, the new vice president and general manager is a newer hire. They're not going to probably have any say on any of that stuff. They got the right writer. I think they got a tremendous artist to do a series like this. But they have terrible leadership, and there's no direction for DC Comics. We'll see how it goes. The limited series will be preceded by 2 specials. Dark Crisis #0, Free Comic Book Day, will be available for readers on 7 May. And May 31st, Justice League Road to Dark Crisis #1 one-shot. Now, that one obviously won't be free, and I'll be shocked if that's a dollar less than $9. You know what I mean? Probably more like a $10 comic book. The 32-page Dark Crisis Free Comic Book Day is written by Williamson and more unnamed writers with art by Daniel Sampere, Jim Chung, and more. Justice League Road to Dark Crisis #1 sets the stage of the main series and features a roster of writers including Williamson, Jeremy Adams, Brandon Thomas, Chuck Brown, Stephanie Phillips, and Philip Kennedy Johnson. Normally, they pick those writers for a reason because they're working on the characters that are going to have a big part to play, in the series. And they've obviously been working with the characters. So if we look at the writers that they have chosen there and who they've worked on, it could give us an idea of who's going to be main players in this Dark Crisis. And it also could give us an idea of who these writers are going to be working with, depending on what they're doing. So as far as Williamson, he's doing Batman. He's going to be dead. He's doing Damian Wayne's Robin. Deathstroke, I don't imagine, plays a big part, especially for the heroes in this event. So there's a good chance that Damian Wayne will play a big part in this because Williamson is the architect. I don't think he'll be the new Batman because we do have a piece of art that's showing kind of the Trinity and their replacements. It's a cover. You see Wonder Woman with Wonder Girl. You see Superman with John Kent above him. And then you see Bruce Wayne Batman with Jace Fox Batman above him. So I imagine he'll be the replacement Batman in this series. As far as Jeremy Adams, he is working with the Flash. So speaking of that character, And he has been trying his mightiest, doing the best work of his career, trying to salvage what's left of Wally West. And he's been doing a good job. Unfortunately, nobody's reading it. If you have a chance and you want to read something from DC that's not going to make you want to hurl, go check out Jeremy Adams' Flash. It's actually really, really good. It's right up there with Robin, Deathstroke, and Batman with Williamson. So they have a couple of really good writers right there at the top. Brandon Thomas and Chuck Brown, obviously they've been working a lot with the Aquamen. They've been doing Black Manta, Jackson Hyde type stuff. I'm expecting Arthur Curry Aquaman to die and Jackson Hyde to replace him as Aquaman. And I imagine he'll have a substantial presence in the Dark Crisis event. DC Comics had already pretty much confirmed that Jackson Hyde was going to be replacing Arthur Curry as Aquaman. Makes sense. Minority character. He's also LGBTQ plus, and you're going to see a lot of that with the replacement characters. The next writer of note is Stephanie Phillips. She's been working a ton with Harley Quinn and just a little bit with Wonder Woman. I hope to God that doesn't mean there's going to be a ton of Harley Quinn in this. She's insufferable at this point. And I've got another video for you guys about Harley Quinn. It might be tonight or it's tomorrow. It's one of those days, but you're not going to believe what I got to show you on that. That was cringe fest. That was not a Stephanie Phillips comics, though. She's not that bad, but she's not good either. There's no real value add putting a Stephanie Phillips on an event like this other than to elevate her name, really. She's not going to bring a lot of skill as far as storytelling to the table. I imagine that means Harley Quinn's going to be a big part of this. The last one is more interesting. Philip Kennedy Johnson has pretty much only been working with Clark Kent Superman, and Clark's supposed to be dead, right? That's what they're telling us. He also did that House of L stuff, so there are a bunch of other different versions of Supermen type characters that are generational versions of the hero, but those are supposed to be in the future. He hasn't really done much of anything with John Kent, so perhaps he'll be doing the John Kent Superman stuff. Maybe Tom Taylor was busy, or maybe Tom Taylor has, maybe he's got the next event or something. So they didn't want to have him have his name as one of the primaries on this one. So I don't know what that one means. We also do know that supposedly one of the Justice League is going to survive the Dark Army and come back and tell the world what happened. Well, they wouldn't do it with Superman, would they? They already have a new Superman. So I'd be surprised on that one. Not sure. Philip Kennedy Johnson could be the wild card. As far as the solicitation information for the free comic book day issue, we do have that. It says, witness the rise and fall of the Justice League. The event years in the making is here with Dark Crisis. The Justice League is comics' greatest super team, made up of DC Comics' legendary superheroes. They have saved the world countless times. No crisis was too much for them to handle until now. The Justice League has been defeated by the Great Darkness and its army of DC's most dangerous villains. Now a generation of heroes must rise to protect not only the multiverse, but also the legacy of the DC universe, a prelude to DC's biggest story of 2022. When I'm right, I'm always right. I've been talking about this maybe 9 months, maybe even closer to a year. They've been getting ready to replace all the main heroes in the DC universe, or at least most of them, with new, younger, more diverse versions of the characters. I don't know that it's going to be Justice League queer, but it's going to be something like that. Superman, John Kent, bisexual Superman. Batman's going to be Jay Fox, black Superman. Aquaman's going to be Jackson Hyde, black gay Aquaman. It appears that Yara Flor is going to be the character replacing Diana Prince. There we go, South American Wonder Woman. Do you get the hint now? Who do you think is going to be the Green Lantern? Although I'll be honest, there are some pictures, and it sure looks like Hal Jordan is going to be the Green Lantern, not JoJo Mullen's fine ass. But I'll be surprised on that, too, if she's not playing a very large part of this. They've been setting this up for a very long time. I hate being right, but I am right. This is exactly what's happening. Do I think that Joshua Williamson was the architect or the brains behind all of this? No, not really. I think they told him that he was going to write this event, and he's doing the best that he can, and he's trying to tell a love letter to DC Comics, specifically legacy characters. We'll see if it ends up being good. They got a good writer, but I don't think a lot of people are going to want to read a 7-issue miniseries where none of the heroes that they like are there. It's going to be a tough sell, even with Williamson on there. And let's be honest, he's not Scott Snyder. He's not Geoff Johns. He's not Grant Morrison. He's not one of those writers that just sells on his name alone. He can sell some on his name alone, but he's not that A-tier, like upper crust. Everybody knows who he is. You throw his name on a title and people get excited. When I say people, I mean like normie comic readers that maybe don't read comic books every week or every month. They go, oh, I want to come in for this because I know who this person is. I don't think a lot of readers had that relationship with Williamson, although they probably should because he is really good. As far as Joshua Williamson, this is what he had to say. Dark Crisis is an epic DCU event about legacy. It will have all the giant fun cosmic battles and multiversal set pieces, but it is not about reboots, retcons, or rewriting time and space. At its core, it's about the characters and relationships that we've seen built over DC's great history. I don't believe this. Scott Snyder said the same exact thing about Dark Knight's Death Battle. It's not a reboot. It's not a crisis or whatever. And what did it end up being? They fundamentally changed the entire DC Comics universe. Now there's an omniverse, there's a linear verse, there's an Elseworlds, there's a dark multiverse. It became untenable. And that's why we have the shitty state of DC Comics at this point. There needs to be a retcon. They need to shrink this thing down and get it manageable again, to where you can have a shared continuity where the stories and character interactions matter, because that's completely lacking at DC Comics. So I do think that there will be some major changes coming out of Dark Crisis. They won't be the stuff I want. We're not going to get John Kent aged down to his age that he should be. We're not going to get the removal of the Omniverse. If anything, it'll probably get more confusing. I will be absolutely flabbergasted if at the end of Dark Crisis, we don't get multiple reboots back to number one and multiple titles spinning out of this with new series. Batman's going to probably go back to a number one. I'll be shocked if it doesn't. Catwoman seems right for moving back to number one so you can get a new writer and get Tini Howard out of there. Green Lantern needs to be rebooted right now. There's a lot of changes that need to go on to DC Comics. And there's absolutely no way in hell they're going to end Dark Crisis without a tremendous amount of reboots and stuff like that. So I don't believe that at all. I'm sure he's trying to be honest, but come on. We've been here, done that, sir. The publisher also calls Dark Crisis an epic battle of good versus evil with epic surprises. And it's about showing how heroes relate to each other when faced with the impossible. I think we've all seen heroes relate to each other when faced with the impossible. We are on a crisis number 9 or 10 right now. And I don't think epic is probably the buzzword that DC Comics thinks it is. I just don't think when DC and Marvel say this is epic that anyone believes them at this point. They've overpromised and underdelivered so many times. Nobody's thinking that this is going to be epic. Sure, it might be big in scale. Sure, there's going to be a lot of fallout. It's just going to be confusing. That's what they should call it. This is going to be a confusing battle of good versus evil with confusing surprises and a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense in the end. And then when they actually deliver something that's epic, you know, in scope and scale and in execution, like quality-wise, people will be surprised. Stop overselling and underdelivering. That's what I say. DC Comics have also revealed some more information. I'm surprised they let this one get out, but they said that Pariah, a key character from the original 1985 Crisis on Infinite Earths from Marvel Wolfman and George Perez, whose last appearance was in the epilogue of Infinite Frontier number 6, is going to be the main villain of Dark Crisis. Pariah is using the Great Darkness as a weapon to bring his multiverse, now dubbed Multiverse 2. Great, we have multiple multiverses now. Is it getting confusing enough for you? It is for me. Now dubbed Multiverse 2 in the new Greater Omniverse, back from obliteration, the Mad Pariah wants to destroy Earth Zero, otherwise known as Earth Prime or the main DCU Earth, in his quest for rebirth and vengeance. This sounds like Secret Wars or whatever from Jonathan Hickman. I think I've read this one before. Not surprising. It also says, in Dark Crisis, the Earth Zero heroes left behind in the wake of the death of the Justice League must come together to fend off Pariah and to save the lost Justice League. But not everyone agrees to join the battle. Shocking, the Justice League aren't really dead. They're in some type of purgatory, being held there. So the new heroes, Justice League Queer, can go and save them. This is my not surprised face. Of course, the Justice League aren't dead, and they'll be showing up probably by the second or third issue because they know that these new characters ain't going to be able to carry an event like this because it's going to be damn expensive. There's going to be a lot of tie-ins. It's going to be a lot to handle, and you ain't selling it with John Kent. You ain't selling it with Jace Fox. You're not selling it with Yara Flor. You're not selling it with Jackson Hyde. You know, you're not doing it with JoJo Mullins, fight ass. You're going to have to bring some actual characters with star power to the table, i.e. the actual Justice League that you're killing off to try and get some other heroes over. They've got the right writer. They've got a damn good artist. But do any of DC Comics fans, or enough of DC Comics fans, actually care at this point? They have really done a lot to destroy their universe, and the faith that the fandom has in their leadership and direction at DC Comics. They can shout from the rooftops how great this is going to be. But I've been reading DC Comics for the last 18, 24 months, and it has been great. In fact, the vast majority of it has been below average. There are a couple of standouts there. And I can recommend you some DC Comics that you should be reading right now. But for the most part, you should be skipping all of them because they all suck. Is this going to change that? Is this going to be bringing people back? Are fans ready for another crisis? We just had one, less than 2 years ago. Eventually, the law of diminishing returns kicks in. It's been kicking in. DC Comics are heavily reliant on ratio variant covers. They have to go out and change the sexuality of major heroes just to get publicity and any type of mainstream coverage nowadays. Sure, they got a blip on the radar when they said they were killing the Justice League because Batman and Superman were there. Wonder Woman. Nobody's going to care about this. No one's going to trust them. Well, not nobody. Somebody's going to, but I don't think they realize the dire straits that they are in as a publisher right now as far as fan confidence and the overwhelming lack of quality across the line at DC Comics. It's a problem. After some of those scathing comments about DC Comics and the current state of their universe, some of you may ask, why are you still reading comic books? Well, it's because I'm a fool. I'm the biggest fool in comic books. There's a reason I still read them. If you're interested, the video's right here and I explain it all.